Rodney A. Brooks, and welcome to RodneyABrooks.com. Today we're talking with Kerry Hannon, journalist and author. Kerry has written 14 books, and she is a contributing writer for New York Times and NextAvenue.com, among others. Kerry, welcome.
Well, it's great to be here, Rodney. Thanks for the invitation.
All right, good. So you have a new book about to come out. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, I do. It's called In Control at 50 Plus, How to Succeed in the New World of Work. And so, Rodney, what it's really looking at is some of the themes I've explored in some of my other books, but it's essentially what we're seeing, the trends coming out of the pandemic year. How has the workplace changed, and particularly for workers in this cohort? And so that's sort of the dive here, and we'll see where it all leads.
Okay, well, let's stay on that for a minute because I'm curious. Coming out of the pandemic, is the market better or worse for people 50 plus?
Oh, that's such a great question. It's so individual. For some people, there really are some great opportunities there because companies have been having trouble finding workers. And so there seems to be this disconnect in terms of a worker shortage for some industries. So depending on your industry and your skill set, it is a great time. For others, it's the same slog that we've seen all of these years in terms of ageism kind of deeply embedded in the corporate culture. And, older workers still fight that uphill climb to try to get back into the workplace if they've been laid off during the pandemic or, are looking for a career transition.
So do we know yet if the layoffs impacted older workers more than younger workers?
Initially, yes. Initially, it was a big slam to the workers over 50. But it did bounce back, and so there was a resurgence there. So it wasn't as desperate. Women, of course, took the biggest hit, and it continues to be so. And a lot of those issues of women being out of the workplace were associated with caregiving to a certain extent as well. So as remote work continues, that's still an issue for many women to get back in the workplace. I do think it did improve for workers over 50. But the issues are still lingering that we've been up against for a while. And as more baby boomers move into this age cohort that kind of, should I stay or should I go? Employers are still offering these, early retirement packages and things that can be enticements to step out of the workplace when, in fact, you and I know from our work that with longevity, the longer you can keep working and earning some kind of income, the better off you're going to be in the future for your financial security.
Okay, so what are some of those obstacles for getting back into the workforce?
Well, let's just knock off a few of the myths about older workers that they're so pervasive. Number one, they think that if you're in this age category, you're not really up to speed with the technology. And absolutely no study has ever shown that people in this age group are not adept at technology. But nonetheless, that you're set in your ways of doing things and you don't want to try new ways of doing things. That you're not going to play well with the other kids, meaning you're not going to be happy reporting to a younger boss or working with younger colleagues. And some of the big ones are that you're too expensive, that you expect a certain salary that you had before, and they can find a younger worker to do that job, train them up, and they'll work for less. And also, you're expensive to insure in terms of health benefits and so forth. So there are a couple of these things and probably more that go into this. Maybe one other one is that you don't have the stamina, that it's kind of a holding place for you until you actually do retire. So, it's a bunch of things, but really the truth is they see your expiration date and they say you're too expensive and they say bye-bye.
Okay. So age discrimination is a big issue. Okay. So, and we don't want to pass over that as one of the, what you've talked about is age discrimination throughout. Right. Okay, but just out and out age discrimination, that's a big issue, isn't it?
It's huge and it's illegal, and it's it's just hard to prove. It's really, really hard to prove. I know so many people that get down in an interview process and it's like them and another candidate, and the younger candidate does get the job, but the company can usually justify why that was the situation. So it's pretty difficult if in the hiring process to prove that, except we have found in job descriptions and job postings little red flags that kind of show that they're looking for a younger worker. And you can kind of, dance around that a little bit. If you're actually in a job and you're looking to get promoted within your job or not face a layoff, it's pretty hard to prove ageism. But people do it, and you need to just stay at it. And you have to be really cognizant that these issues are out there. Most employers are going to say they don't have age, but you and I know it's one of the isms. It's like this whole last year we've been talking about all kinds of gender discrimination and racial discrimination. Age discrimination is part of that. It's just not really part of the dialogue yet.
Okay, you talked a bit about longevity. Now, okay, and so let's talk about longevity and jobs. I mean, some people really want to retire or really think they want to retire, at 62 or 65, but a lot of people are not, and there are lots of experts who say, it's worth it to keep working, to keep your mind sharp and to keep your body sharp. And so talk about the importance of working longer, or for some people, for others, it just doesn't work. But what part does longevity play in your advice to work longer?
Yeah. Rodney, what's happened is, this generation, our generation, this is all new territory. No one, we are living longer lives, even though COVID sort of shifted the numbers a little bit. The truth is, people are healthier and living longer. And so that 65 is sort of this weird date that just sort of came up, arbitrarily many years ago as a retirement time. And the fact is, you could seriously at 60 have another 15 years of even pursuing a completely new career if you wanted to. People you could have 2 decades in retirement. So do you have enough saved? And that's the $1 million question, right? Or $2 million question, because we don't know what health costs are going to be in the future. And all we do know is they keep escalating. So particularly those last years of lives, I mean, I've seen it with my parents. It's extraordinarily expensive, those last few years in their 90s. And if we're living into our 90s and maybe say 100, these are a lot of years to have to support with fixed income. So that's why it's really important. And also the cost of living may be rising and so forth. But really, you're giving yourself a real bonus if you can keep earning, even, it doesn't have to be full freight, but if you can keep bringing in some kind of income as a safety net. But the truth of the matter is most people have not saved adequately for retirement. And most Americans who work for small businesses have never had access even to an employer retirement plan. So if you don't even have someone matching you, trust me, I work for myself. It is really hard to fund my IRA every year because, I'm getting by and I have to make myself do it, but I don't have an employer match as an incentive or that kind of thing. So you see where I'm headed here. The real reason you need to do this is for future financial security.
Okay, and part of that future financial security is that if you're working longer, you're also letting your retirement nest egg continue to grow, right? So that's the other.
Yeah, so you can continue to let it grow. So when we go through market gyrations, as we saw last year, now the market's being kind of cool for us, but you never know, it's up and down. This gives you the time to let it keep compounding and leave it alone. And depending on what kind of job you have or what kind of income, you might be able to keep contributing to that as well. Because, at 60, as I said, if you have 15 more years of working, why not keep putting money in there if you can?
So, Kerry, what kind of advice do you have for people? Let's start with the advice that I've heard from you before. If you're working, it's easier to go work part-time for that employer or to work on contract. But if you weren't thinking about that and you left a job and now you want to come back, or you feel like you're bored and you need to do something, what kind of advice do you have to get back into the job market after you left?
Right. Now, getting back into the job market after you left can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Depends on how long you've stepped away from. You may very well be able to go back to your former employer if you've left with a great relationship and you still have good contacts there, and propose doing contract work for them or consulting work or raising your hand for upcoming projects that maybe nobody on staff wants to do or has the time to do right now. There's little ways that you can just re-network and boomerang back there. That's your easiest step, right? If that's something that intrigues you that you would like to do. Otherwise, your first step is going to be ask yourself those questions. What do you want to do? What do you really want to do? What are your skills that you can market? What are you up to date on any skills in your industry or your line of work that have changed or accelerated the need to learn some new things there? So if you have to do that, add those skills. And, there's great ways to do it online right now. It's pretty simple, but make sure that you can market yourself appropriately. And third, think about who do you want to work for? I mean, it's not necessarily always what you want to do. Is there a company or someone that always their mission appeals to you, whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit? I mean, how would you like to see this next chapter of your life, and how can I like to think of it as, you're giving back in a way. No matter what it is, you're using your skill set to make a difference in the world, whether it's with a service, a product, whatever it is, you're lending your expertise. So those are the big things that you need to ask yourself. Who do you want to work for, what, and why me? So what are your skills there? And then once you do that, network, and it doesn't have to be boring but reach out to people at some of those companies or doing the kinds of work you might be interested in, and see who they know, because it's usually those second contacts that are going to help you the most. And do those exploratory, informational interviews. So not hardcore press selling somebody on you. You're not selling yourself at this stage. You're trying to find out what's out there, what might be possible. Those are sort of some nice, easy ways to start the dance and get involved with industry conversations on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's just a great place to see who you know at companies and sort of get back in touch with people from your past that might be able to give you some ideas. But tell everybody you're looking. Don't be bashful about it. Spread the word, far and wide, and have some, pride in what you do and your expertise, because it's easy to kind of step back and maybe I've lost my step a bit here. No. You have to have that confidence because you can provide something, but make sure you know what that is and where you want to go.
Okay, so you started talking about second act. Now you've done, as we said, 14 books, and you've talked to a lot of people. So tell me some of the stories about people who've actually moved on to second and third act. Some of the more interesting ones.
Oh my gosh.
What they did before, and what they do, what they switched to, and what they moved to in their second or third act.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many fun ones, Rodney. I mean, there's, someone who was a pilot for United Airlines who always hated the coffee wherever they landed. And when he retired from United, he started a coffee company down in North Carolina. Or, there's someone who, she was in the insurance industry, and that's, had a very nice position. When she stepped away from that job, she always loved to sew. It sounds like it was just a hobby of hers. But she turned it into a business where she started by making pillows for people from old wedding dresses. And then it has expanded to doing, all kinds of different kinds of quilts and pillows and projects on top. And I personally, I show horses, right? So I have ribbons, and I have sent her my ribbons to turn into pillows, because otherwise they're just gathering dust. And so that was kind of a fun one. There was a guy who, he was with the military, he was with the Navy. And when he was a kid, he was just his whole life really passionate about the circus. And when he retired from mandatory retirement, I always say he ran away with the circus. He managed to find a job with, it was the Big Apple Circus, moving a troupe of circus performers up and down the East Coast. And he, I was laughing. I'd say, Don, what is this all about? How did you make the switch? Plus, he had always stayed in connected to the circus industry, and he got all the publications. But they valued his management skills, his experience, all the leadership abilities and things he had from his military career, and then his passion for the circus. But I could go on and on. There's another military woman who started. She when she stepped away in her 50s, she started a business in Cleveland, Ohio called CLE Urban Winery. So, and I'm like, what is CLE? And she's like, Kerry, do not fly into Cleveland. And so apparently that's the letters for the airport. Anyway, anyways, it's they make their own wine. Now they don't grow the grapes, but they make their own wine, and they have a wine kind of cafe and so forth. And it's been a huge success in Cleveland. So on and on, there's these sort of fun stories. Someone who's a lawyer at Verizon, and again, I'm on this liquids thing, but he and his son-in-law started a gin business here in Washington, D.C., and making gin, which nobody had done that since before Prohibition in D.C., and they sold that business last year to and that's kind of an interesting thing is when I went back and looked at some of my second actors from previous books, a lot of them do it for a period, and then they move on to something else. So there are all kinds of fun, sort of quirky second act stories that I've come across.
Okay, well, that leads us into our final question, and that's basically starting a business when you're 50 plus or after retirement. And you talked about some, but what are the do's and the don'ts for someone who is going into retirement age and starting a business?
Right. And be very prudent and practical about this. I mean, it can sound very dreamy to start your own business, and not everyone is hardwired to be an entrepreneur. That is a fact. But if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, the things you need to do is, one, you need to be financially fit. You don't want to dip into your retirement accounts to fund this business. You need to make sure that you're lean and mean. You pay down some debts. You're ready to make a commitment to this, and you're ready to perhaps earn less than you did in your previous career, at least initially, so that you have your funding lined up. You understand, and you don't need a lot of money to start a business. It's not a $40,000, $50,000 endeavor. The way you can start a business today virtually with your computer, like the woman with the pillows, you can do it just having a great website. So under $5,000, easy. You need to tap into, first, so you're going to get financially fit. You're going to find out if what the needs are. Again, it's those questions: why me? Why now? Why this product or service? Why does the marketplace need you? Where is there the place for you? So that involves doing some research, some informational interviews, talking to people how they got started. If you can possibly, if you can volunteer, moonlight, do the job first in some way, just to get a sense of, is this really what I want to be doing? It's sort of been my hobby maybe, or something I've always wanted to get back to doing. But when you're actually doing it, is it going to really turn you on? So those are some of the big things. Add the necessary skills and give yourself time. This is not there's going to be ups and downs. You want to take it easy and have a great business plan and a network of supporters around you. I love it when people can hook up with other entrepreneurs that they can knock ideas against, and they can talk about war stories or share resources, because your wife or your family or your partner, or your best friend, they want you to succeed, but you really need somebody who's following that path with you that you can knock ideas with and stay accountable.
Okay, great. I know I said that was the last question, but that was the next to last question. So for those who may not need the money, let's talk about volunteering, or basically spending time doing things at a church or community center or senior center. I mean, some people have a passion for volunteering, and how, and maybe they didn't while they were working. So how do you figure out what you want to do and how to do it when you want to volunteer your time and services?
Yeah. Oh, Rodney, that is so important, because lots of us, and me included, you don't have the time to do the volunteer work you'd like to do while you're going full force, right? And so this is your time to kind of give back. And there was a recent survey that came out with Edward Jones and Age Wave that said that, this is a huge thing about people find their passion and their joy in their retirement years is by giving back and volunteering. So, but you, here again, you need to approach this like a job. No one wants you to come be a volunteer just because out of the goodness of your heart you're going to do this. You have to approach it like a job. You need to, be accountable for when you're going to be there, what you say you're going to do, what skills you're going to provide for that organization. You have to make your case to them why they want to bring you on as a volunteer. It's not like, oh, everyone's going to roll out the red carpet. You need to have something to offer to them. So again, there's some great matchmaking services out there that can help you. AARP has a really good source for volunteering if you look on their website. And I've written a story recently and I can share that with your audience as well on this whole idea of different websites that can help you kind of find a good match for your volunteer services. And again, today we can do a lot of this even virtually. But really, truthfully, this goes back to what the kind of thing you look for in a job. What are you passionate about? What would you like to do? What organization would you like to support and really be able to give to? So it really is a two-way street here.
Okay. So tell us the details on your book, when it's going to be out. And also, you mentioned the story, your website, your Twitter handle.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the new book is In Control at 50 Plus, How to Succeed in the New World of Work. Some of the other books we chatted about were, Never Too Old to Get Rich was about entrepreneurship and great pajama jobs for remote workers. My website is kerryhannon.com. So that's KerryHannon.com. And Twitter is at Kerry Hannon. So at KerryHannon. And I'd love to hear from anybody. That would be great.
Okay, and they can, and your email address is on your website?
It is, but it's Kerry at kerryhannon.com. So, share your story with me. I love hearing about second acts, third acts, how people, made it all work for them and advice they have for others. I think I tend to profile people who are winners because I think we learn from those who succeed. But even the winners have great advice about, oh my gosh, this happened and this is how I got around it. So it's really important to hear these stories.
Kerry, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you to Kerry Hannon, KerryHannon.com, journalist and author.
Thank you, Rodney.